This is the Insta360 X4, and this little guy isn't just any old camera. What I've come to realize, this is actually a film crew in your pocket. But I also want to talk about the specifications and how they relate to the real world, whether it's worth the upgrade from the X3 to this X4, and lastly, whether this can be your primary action camera, because I've been so surprised by how versatile this is. So let's talk about whether you should consider this at the top of your list for your next action camera. Now, for transparency's sake, Insta360 have sent me out this camera, and they also are sponsoring this video. Now, the big upgrade over my X3 with this X4 is that the X3 only does 5.7K at 360, whereas the new X4 does 8K 30 frames per second in 360-degree mode. For the average person, you might be thinking, why the hell do I need 8K footage when 4K is more than good enough? Well, it's because of a very specific thing with these 360 cameras. When you're in 360 mode, it's recording the entire 360-degree surroundings. You need to crop in or zoom in on a particular angle if you want it to be a standard looking shot for your YouTube content. And when you do that, when you crop in, you obviously drop quality as you zoom in further and further. And what I experienced with my X3 is there's a limitation to how far you can zoom in before the footage starts to get too grainy or too blurry. That's no longer the case with the 8K 360 mode. Now, to hit that point home, that is basically a 78% increase in quality. It means you've got 78% more wiggle room when it comes to working with the footage when you're cropping in. This really allows you to zoom in a whole lot further while still maintaining high quality footage, which is a pretty big deal, and I think reason enough for you to consider the upgrade to the X4 over the X3. Of course, the 8K isn't perfect. I wouldn't recommend it for low light settings because it certainly doesn't perform that great. I would drop it down to its 5.7K mode if you're doing low light stuff. But general daytime use, I think the 8K really is a major step forward for the Insta360. You can now do 5.7K at 60 frames per second. This is in 360 mode. 4K, you can get 100 frames per second now. And if you have it in the special Me mode, you can bump that 4K frames per second up to 120 frames per second. And that is all in 360-degree mode. And if you're wondering, yes, you can run this in single lens mode, and now you can do that at 4K 60 frames per second, and you get a 170-degree field of view. And this really is where the versatility of this camera lies, because you've got the option of that 360 mode that allows you all those interesting angles and those interesting views. But a lot of the time you just need that single lens shot. And with the Insta360 X3 and this X4, you've got a single lens, but you've got two of them. So you've got your forward shot and you've got your backward shot. Now, something they've kept on the Insta360 X4 that's also on the Insta360 X3 is their flow state stabilization, which I can attest to being absolutely fantastic. Because a lot of shots I'm getting are off-road in the dirt. And when you're using something like this selfie stick and you've extended it all the way out, this thing does an awful lot of bouncing up and down. And I've watched the camera jiggling around on this thing in front of me thinking, how the hell is this footage gonna be anything near stable and usable? But to my surprise, I've got home to do the editing, and this flow state stabilization is the real deal. It works fantastically. The footage is really smooth, so I've been quite impressed with that. The other thing that really helps with that stabilized look is the horizon lock in 360 mode, and it allows the bike to tip and weave in the shot, and it really gives you this interesting look, gives you that feeling of being on the motorcycle and tipping into the corners. Now, one of the biggest gripes I had with the Insta360 X3 is this here. That is the lens, and as you can see, that lens is completely exposed. Insta360 do provide this with it. It's this little silicone cover. You pop it straight over and hey presto, it's nice and protected. The problem starts when you get muppets like me. I'm on a ride, I'm just enjoying the motorcycle completely in the moment. I get off the bike, obviously I take my cameras with me into the cafe, and I forget to put this cover on, and I get to the cafe and you know what I do? Plonk straight onto the table, completely forgetting about the lenses. Or hypothetically, perhaps you forget that your Insta360 X4 is extended all the way out on the selfie stick, and when you pull up at the cafe and park the bike, you manage to park that X4 in the bushes. Now, Insta360 did realize this, and they released a lens guard that you can stick to with an adhesive over this X3 to protect the lenses, but it was a bit of a clunky system. Not the case with the X4. This is released straight out of the box lens guards that you can click on and off yourself. You've got the option of premium glass lens guards or the standard plastic lens guards. Either way, I absolutely love it because it's idiot proof for people like me that are clearly going to forget about the lenses and chuck it down on the table. The other big one is the battery life of the X4 over the X3. Now, if I'm to put up these to camera, you can see the physical size difference. So at the front there, you can see the X3, and you can visibly see that the X4 battery is significantly larger than the X3 battery. It's a bit harder to tell side by side, but I can tell you that the X4 battery is definitely bigger. And that means better run times. This new X4 battery runs 67% longer than the X3 if you were to run it in the same 5.7K at 30 frames per second. Insta360 claims that it will get you 135 minutes, which is a big improvement over the X3, which would only run in those settings to 81 minutes. Now you can bump that up to 5.7K at 60 frames per second, which means you have the option of getting slow motion footage, and you're still getting a runtime on the X4 of roughly 95 minutes, which is better than the X3. But none of that really matters to me because I spend most of my time using the X4 in 8K mode. And what I found in 8K mode is I get roughly about an hour, maybe a little bit over. Insta360's website says 71 minutes, and I've found that to be pretty accurate. I'd say about a standard hour, maybe a little bit more. And I found that pretty acceptable because after about an hour, that's usually when my bum is getting sore riding a motorbike and I want to take a bit of a break, have a snack, have a bit of a sit down anyway. So I found that's really slotted in well to how I ride a motorcycle. I think the fact that you're getting just over an hour in 8K mode at 360 is pretty decent. And a nice little hack that I like to use to extend that, of course, the powered selfie stick. This has got a lithium battery in it. You just plug it in via USB-C and you basically have over doubled your running time. And while we're on the topic of the battery, what I love specifically about this camera, having used many different action cameras over the time, is how quick and easy it is to get the battery out of this camera. It's such a simple process. I don't have to remove it from its mount. It's just two little tabs, boom, it clicks out, slap the other one on, and I can get straight back to recording with no faffing about. These are waterproof to 10 meters without any cases or without any changes to the camera, just straight out of the box. I've ridden in some pretty pathetic weather, so whatever the weather is for that day, I've just got to ride through it, and some of those days have been pretty damn terrible, and I've never had an issue with the waterproofing. Another great feature that this has is the voice controls. You can actually connect this to your Bluetooth headset on your motorcycle that's attached to your helmet and use voice control to control the camera. So that means your hands don't have to leave the handlebar. You can also use gesture control if you don't have a Bluetooth headset. There's also an app for your phone. I've had absolutely no interaction with this because I do all of my work on my laptop using Insta360's desktop software. But the option is there, particularly if you're into shorter clips, you do a lot of stuff on TikTok or Instagram, this would be a really fantastic option. You've got quick edit functions, you've got AI mode where AI will edit the video for you, select the best looking clips, and basically do all the heavy lifting for you, which is pretty great if you're wanting to save time. You've got Pro mode even in the app. If you really want to dive into the video with your phone, you still can. But for myself, I use the desktop software and I really have been quite impressed with it. One of my big fears with getting this camera was the proprietary software. The fact that you have to edit the 360 camera footage in Insta360's studio software. Then you have to export it and put it into your workflow. So I was really worried that the payoff wouldn't be there, that this would add extra time to my edits, which it does admittedly do. But the features that it has and the simplicity of using the software have really convinced me that it's worth the time and effort. For one, it's really intuitive. I haven't had to read up on how to use the software at all. All the basic features are there that you would expect from either DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut, or Premiere. If you're familiar with some video or photo editing software, you're going to be pretty familiar with Insta360's desktop program. On top of that, you've got really interesting perspective features that you can use. One in particular is the Motion ND filter that you can use. Basically, that's marketing speak for giving a blurred background that gives you this look of rush speed. It can really make an interesting shot, give you the perspective of going faster than you are, or really just hype up and make that shot a little extra. You've got the option of different views, whether it's ultra wide, mega view. You've got lots of different options on the angle of the camera, which is also great. On top of all that, Insta360 have just released a special edition BMW Motorrad edition of the X4. For one thing, that's Insta360 saying we understand our target audience for this. There's obviously a lot of people that buy these cameras are either car enthusiasts or motorcycle enthusiasts, or people like me that are both. You also do get some practicality with this. It now has dash cam mode, so I think that's probably the best thing about this camera. It also has license plate blurring in the mobile app if you're wanting to stay anonymous, and you can also have an overlay over the footage of a BMW style dashboard. And like any action camera, the accessories available can really make or break the camera. That's part of the success of a lot of other big manufacturers of action cameras. Insta360 understand this. They have so many different accessories. A lot of them are specific for motorcycle usage as well. So there's a plethora of options for getting different angles, mounting them in different spots, microphone adapters, all the good stuff that you would need to set up a YouTube channel based on motorcycles. So they've absolutely got you covered there as well. The first one is the lens guard options. Now you've got two options. You've got this one here. These are glass and they're the high quality premium lens guard option, meant to give you the highest quality footage while still having protection over the lens. The cheaper option is this, the plastic lenses. Also do a fairly decent job, but by Insta360's account give you not quite the same quality. But what I found with these glass lens guards is that in the glare, and here in Australia, I've got to point this out, the glare in Australia is next level. This problem is probably magnified in my environment, but what I found is in really bright conditions, that is direct sunlight hitting these glass lenses, you do get a little bit of lens flare or halo effect. The footage can actually look quite nice, but if you don't really like that, it can be a little distracting. So I would like to see them maybe make some improvements on the premium lens guards themselves. The other little critique I've got is not on the camera directly, but on the powered selfie stick. This has allowed me to double the run time of recording, and I can fix this to the bike just like I can the regular selfie stick. The only problem is I've found that bracing this is a little bit more difficult than the standard selfie stick. Reason being is the standard selfie stick, as you can see, has this thread in the bottom. That allows me to thread into here, which is the base clamp, which I can't use with this standard selfie stick because it doesn't have the thread at the base. This isn't the hugest deal, as there's plenty of other braces that I can use to get the same effect, but it's more just a convenience thing. I'd like to see that change on the powered selfie stick. Obviously the stitching isn't perfect all the time. You're going to see a little bit of a line in the footage, but I think for what it is, the fact that you get a 360 field of view and the wizardry in the program renders the image good enough that you really have to try and pay attention in most scenarios is pretty impressive enough. So I'm more than happy to put up with that minor flaw as well. To round things up, if you're starting out a YouTube channel today and you're trying to decide that big purchase on what camera to get, do you get a fancy mirrorless camera like I'm using now? Do you get a standard single lens action camera, or do you take the leap and get an Insta360 X4? I would say get the X4 purely for its versatility, because it can have the single lens mode front and rear that is almost as good as a standard action camera. plus you've got that versatility of 360 mode, which leads me back to my comment of this camera really is a film crew in your pocket. It's so versatile. So I think that versatility means it should be the first camera you get if you're starting out an action-based YouTube channel. I think also if you're wondering whether it's worth the upgrade over the X3, absolutely it is. That 8K footage, bigger, longer running battery, and the removable lens guards, those three things alone are reason enough for an upgrade. And the last criteria are people like me. You might have a fairly sizable YouTube channel, or you're a real hobbyist enthusiast. You've reached this point where single lens cameras aren't getting you all the footage and the angles you need, and you don't either have the financial capability to hire a cameraman or a camera crew, but you're wanting interesting creative footage. If that's you, this Insta360 X4, or even the older X3, really open up a whole new avenue of creative footage. It really does help you specifically with B-roll, because it means you've got exponentially more B-roll because you've got so many different angles that you can use out of the one recording. So that's another real advantage as well. Thinking about getting this camera, I don't think it's a bad decision at all. This camera really has a lot of features that make a strong argument for having it in your arsenal, at least alongside your other cameras, if not being your primary action camera. Don't forget to check out the giveaway information from Insta360 in the description box down below. And as always, don't forget to stay shiny side up.